Well, that was a movie.
Hello and welcome back to Simon's Rants. I'm Simon, this is Carmen. He's got a podcast, I'll link it below, check that out. Today we're giving our first thoughts on Tuesday. It is a film written and directed by Dana, I'm going to say this wrong, Nunes Pusic. Maybe. Well, maybe. I don't know. So, in case you haven't seen the trailer, you don't know what it's about. It follows a girl and her mom as they're visited by death, which is portrayed as a bird of sorts. And, I'm going to kind of leave it there for now as far as being spoiler-free. And boy, oh boy, am I curious what you thought of it. So let me know what you thought of it.
It's going to be hard to really let you know without going into spoilers.
Sure.
So just to be...
We'll
just
have
initial
a long
reaction.
section,
Yeah, just initial reaction. I liked where my mind went and what it made me think about far more than I liked the movie.
Yeah.
There was a lot of like things that I would have considered extreme inconsistencies and things that I just had to keep believing in to make the movie work. And it really, like, it was a struggle. I struggled the whole time to like find what's the message, what's the deeper thing. And I just kept taking myself into any experience I've had with death and just remembering little bits of what that felt like and what it was like to go through that. So for me, it was more of like a personal experience of just kind of understanding death in a different way or revisiting it. The movie itself, I would say, left me... I didn't like the way they went about it. I feel like it could have done so many different things. It was a really cool idea.
Yeah.
I don't like the direction they went.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was moments of brilliance in a mediocre movie, is how I would put it, because the concept, and I guess this isn't really a spoiler because they kind of put this out as the trailer. They just released a single scene, which was when the mother comes home and the girl already has death in her bedroom with her, and they open up a discussion about you need to just be ready for death. Death is part of life.
Life. Every life ends. You cannot avoid.
So I'm like, I'm excited for a dialogue-driven emotional drama about death and coming to terms with it, the philosophy of that, the psychology of that. And you're right, where I assumed it was going was a million times better than where they actually went with it. Yeah. And some of the commentary honestly just left me very confused with what they were trying to say. I think there was some allegory in there that I completely missed. I have to assume, otherwise it was just very bizarre storytelling. And if it is just bizarre storytelling, cool, but I was bored, you know. There was some really good moments in there. There was. Really, really good moments in there. And every time I was like rolling my eyes or tapping out, it would bring me back with a really cool moment.
The exact same experience. Yeah.
So overall, I can't say it was a bad movie because it kept bringing me back, but I can't say it was good either because, I don't know, it was just kind of hit or miss the whole time.
I couldn't help but think, man, this would have been a really good short
film.
And I've always seen, like, I've seen short films and thought, wow, I wonder what this would be like as a full feature film. Yeah. And I feel like I just got the answer to that, and I don't like it. And I feel like it was, instead of adding more to it, it was kind of like they just stretched what they had, and it was like, it was stretched way too thin.
It's very reminiscent of, you know, when like a Dr. Seuss short gets turned into a feature-length movie, and it's like, you've got what clearly was the plot.
Yes.
And then there's a bunch of shit that happens in the middle where you're like, why did we add this in there? Just for an adventure? Like, what? And I'm not saying I hated all of those additional moments. There were some cool ideas, cool concepts in there. Not all of them. But some of it was okay. But it was never as brilliant as that one moment was. Like I said, they put out that one scene. And I really felt like that one scene was like, I don't know, a couple minutes long. Maybe it should have been 20 minutes. As a whole. And in my mind, I can come up with a way that they could have made this movie 80 minutes and it been a solid, good movie at 80 minutes. The problem was, it's 2 hours long.
Yes.
it should not have been in any universe 2 hours long.
Did it feel like two separate movies? I felt like there was a movie,
a good one and a bad one.
And then there was another movie that happened, and then we came back to the original movie, and I was like, whoa, I don't know where we just went. It was almost like that, maybe this was, I don't know how much experience this directors had. Maybe this was like their one thing, and they had all these cool ideas, and they're like, I'm just going to put them into this project. I don't know. It just felt like it went off the rails and then back, and it was like, man, what a simple concept that they completely confused.
Yeah, it really felt like if you give a mouse a cookie, because it was like, it wasn't like a plot. It was just like, they decided this scenario is happening. And then somebody decided, well, what would happen if this scenario happened? Well, then this would happen. Well, if that happened, then what would happen? Yeah. And it just kept like going onto these next steps, but it didn't at any point feel like a story. Mm-hmm. It just felt like events happening because, well, I guess that would happen next logically. But it was, I don't know. It really was such a waste of such a great idea. And if they could have somehow made just that one scene into the whole movie, it would have been like film of the year. Instead, I'm left going like, well, that was a 6, I guess, because I can't give it worse than that. But I can't give it better than that either.
I would give it worse than that.
You would?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I think just the few moments of brilliance made me enjoy it more than I didn't.
I think the only thing that I'm riding off right now, like I said, is the memories that it brought back.
That's fair.
Just of experiences and losing people. It's terrible and we all have to experience it, but there's no good way to go about it. Like, that was what I kept thinking about.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I agree with you to an extent there, where it's like, when you are watching a movie that, deals with any emotion, whether it's positive or negative, it should naturally remind you of those things and make you feel those things from your own life, like whether it's death, whether it's love, whether it's like, there's a really cute tiny moment that I know you reacted to of a dad interacting with his daughter, and I was like, and that moment was perfect because it was like, it made me immediately feel something. And that's how it's supposed to work. When you are sitting there trying to be objective and think about, well, how would I react if this happened to me, and would that make me feel something, then it's not working on an emotional level because you're forcing yourself to feel it. And I caught myself doing that multiple times when it's like, there's supposed to be an emotional powerhouse moment, and it's so unearned by the characters that I'm trying to force myself into the moment, self-insert myself into the scene to be like, what would I be feeling if this was happening to me?
Yeah, I was really... I like to cry sometimes. I will definitely let it go. I thought I was going to be crying like a baby in this film.
Not once.
I teared up with... well, I'll say it at the end, but... Yeah. I teared up at one moment. But again, all I thought of was my daughter. Yeah. And I think about it all the time. Every time the kids get sick, time the kids get sick, your mind goes to places when it's like they're testing and it's like, oh, this could be a cold or this could be cancer. And it's like, there's that little moment where it's just that blip of like, what would that be like? I hope, I just had that feeling for a moment, but that was all me. Yeah. And I just never cared about the characters. In fact, if anything, like the mother became more interesting. And I was like, man, this would have been like such a good tie-in to make me just love both of these people. Sure. But they touched on like things, just little bits here and there. And then by that point, it wasn't even like they were trying to bring emotions. It was just like just trying to get you to the next plot or portion of the movie that got real weird. Yeah. And it
is disappointing because when I say it felt unearned, because it was, it shouldn't have had to have been, because the best parts of this movie outside of, the death himself was the best part of this movie, and for no discernible reason is only in half the movie, which is infuriating, and we'll talk about that more in spoilers. But aside from that, the best parts was the little life moments between the mom and the daughter, where there's like a thing with them goofing around on the couch that felt so real, authentic, and there's a couple of moments like that, and so it's like, so this should have been natural to be like, to feel something about this, yet we never did. And so when it came to the confrontations they had, or the fights they had, or any little moment of like frustration or fear or depression, it all felt so fake. And it's like, why? Because we had the genuine moments there, yet I never felt like they even knew each other, really.
I had a thought at one point about halfway through there was something that just made no sense with the dialogue, and I was like,
Yes,
and I was
I'm
like,
waiting to talk
was
about
this
it.
poorly edited? What, like, I'm wondering
I
what
think the script
person
was
in this
shit.
was bad.
The
Because
scriptwriter.
if the scriptwriter was that bad, then how did he get some of these moments that were like super genuine and great? Were there multiple
The
writers?
acting was brilliant.
The acting was good on across
Every
the board.
actor was
Everybody,
fantastic.
yeah.
And they elevated the script as much as they could, but that can only go so far. It really.
If there was just a bad idea and it was a weird movie, I would have liked it more. It was just like the expectation. Maybe that's my fault.
Yeah,
But even the
we
setup,
had
like-
too high standards.
I was just looking for an emotional ride.
Yeah,
You know,
I wanted to
dealing
cry.
with real life things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to cry.
Yeah, and
but yeah.
that little snippet really led me to believe that I would. That little snippet was so good, but you're right. It's like they had a short film script, and then just were like, what else? I don't know. Just start throwing stuff at the wall, see what sticks.
Yeah.
For 2 hours inexplicably. If you have no
was
idea what
so
to
long.
do, don't make it 2 hours. Keep it short. Keep
Yeah.
it compact. If like I said, if they had made it 80 minutes and only 40 minutes of it felt as good as that snippet, I would have been like, okay, I get why. They had to stretch it. They didn't have quite enough to fill it out and make a great movie, but it was good. But the fact that they went the full 2 hours almost, I'm like, why? What possessed you to think you could do that with this concept?
There was about 20 minutes in where I was like, where we're at, this movie's either going to be over in 10 minutes or they're going to have this incredible like phone booth style thing
Yeah.
where it's going to be one room with dialogue for like an hour and a half.
That's
and
what
I
I
was
wanted.
ready for that.
That's what
I
I
was like,
wanted.
this is going to be a heavy dialogue driven film because all of it's going to the trailer or the little snippet they give you, I was waiting for that to be the beginning of a very long dialogue in that room.
Yeah.
And then the movie ends where I thought it was going to end.
And some people may have thought, oh, this is boring, but like, have you seen Mass yet? I know I've talked to you
No,
about
I
it,
have
but
not
Mass
seen
is a 90-minute movie in real time of just these two couples, these two older, like parent-aged couples, talking in the basement of a church for 90 minutes, and it's like, that's one of the best movies I've ever seen. So I would have been fine with a mom, a daughter, and a parent talking. And granted, and I'll get into spoilers, like there are ways you could have done a similar concept to what they did in this and made it not as lame as they did.
Yeah.
Like it didn't all have to be in the same one room, but that's what I wanted. But regardless, yeah, I don't know. It became like the BFG for a minute, and I didn't want the BFG. I don't even like the BFG as itself, but it definitely should have been
Is that the giant movie?
at the big
I've never seen it.
It's not good.
Okay, I will say this. I'm very glad that we didn't get back in this vehicle and you were like, I loved it. And I'm so happy because we had a long walk back to the car from the theater
Yeah.
and we were talking about anything possible other than the movie.
I was so curious what you were going to think. I was actually hoping you'd disagree with me because, like, I wanted to be like, why do, like, every time a movie that is doing well, and this isn't like doing well, it's very indie, but it's got a positive rating. It's a 75% on Metacritic. I always am like so curious that I'm like, I want somebody to disagree with me so I can have a discussion about it. And then every time I get back in the car and the person I saw it with is like, yeah, I had the exact same experience. I'm like, then what is going on?
and I am somebody who, like, if a movie, I get laughed at a lot, I will rate movies as fun all
Yeah,
the time.
sure.
And that just means, I don't want to call it a stinker because I smiled a bunch during the film. It was
Yeah.
great. And maybe I'll forget about it in 10 minutes. But for those, hour and a half, 2 hours, I really enjoyed myself. It was dumb, but I loved it.
Yeah.
And, like, I am easy to please is what I'm saying for films. It's hard for me not to like one. I can't decide yet if the movie was just bad or if it's because of my expectations and it just didn't do what I wanted it to do. But I think it's a bit of both.
Yeah, no, the writing definitely was pretty awful.
Like, I don't think I'd even recommend somebody watch this on television or streaming.
Yeah. Yeah, no, just watch that clip, literally. Just
clip was
watch
great.
that clip and be like, oh, what a cool concept, and then move on with your life. And you'll be happier for it. Like, that's how I feel. Like, the movie I made up in my head when I saw that clip was so much better than this that I could have just lived the rest of my life going, man, what a great movie that I never got to see. It shouldn't have been a feature. It should have been a short. I really believe that. As somebody who is very much like, I only watch features typically. I don't watch TV shows. I don't even watch that many short films. I can watch this and just know objectively this should have been a short. it would have been best suited to be a short. And if you were going to stretch it into a feature, make it shorter, on the shorter side of a feature.
There was no reason for that to be 2 hours.
No.
There absolutely no reason.
Absolutely not. Yeah, I guess that's what we had to think spoiler free. We're going to get into spoilers now. If you don't want anything spoiled, you should click away now. Go watch it if you want. Come back and we can talk about it then. But please remember to like, share, and subscribe if you're new here. Also subscribe to him. He's on YouTube and Spotify, all that stuff. So thanks, guys. Bye.
See ya.
So, spoilers. So yeah. I really wanted, first of all, none of the characters were likable, and I know you don't need that in a story for it to be good, but like the mom was just...
I feel like you do in this. That's the whole point, right?
Like the mom being like, they never explain why she doesn't have a job. They never explain that. So she's just pretending to work while she's pawning off all of her stuff, which is like, that should be an endearing thing, is that she's so in love with her daughter that she's willing to sell everything she has to try to pay her medical bills. But if you're doing that, then why are you just falling asleep in the park and eating cheese? Like, kept bringing up her eating cheese. I don't get that.
That was actually a part that I liked, and I didn't want to say it spoiler free.
Okay.
The way I took the mother not having a job, faking a job, was, and I was trying to relate all of this as like, what message are they telling us? And I think it was that when death comes, people react in all these different ways, and I feel like they touched on a bunch of different reactions in this one woman. And one of them is denial. And I think that her life, she didn't know how to cope. I feel like whatever job she did have, she could not cope with that job. She couldn't do it, and it was easier for her to just escape her life at home, not having to face her daughter, to be out on the bench, not taking care of herself properly, not just giving herself that little satisfaction, which was the cheese. Like, that's her, to me, that was like the one piece of joy in her life. And that's why when she got stressed out on the bench, she opened up a second one, and she's just trying to like bury and bury and bury the reality that is at home, that she is so desperately trying to get away from. And selling her things was part of keeping that illusion alive, although to keep the daughter from knowing, which is why only the things upstairs were sold. She was creating this false sense of reality for the daughter while she was crumbling. And the daughter obviously knew more than what because all of us try and hide things, and usually the people around us know more than what we think they do. For that, I did like that. In fact, when they revealed that, I was like, I wish they revealed this sooner, because I would have felt more for her character. But they did it so quickly, and then they just left because she had death inside of her, and even that, I was a little confused as to how that worked.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Anyway.
I guess I like it in concept. I just didn't like it in execution, I guess, because I agree. Like, I enjoyed, so in the scene we saw, it cuts right before she goes from being in shock to anger, is her initial reaction right then, which I struggled with in the moment, but immediately after went, well, that's obviously what should have happened. Because, like, when you're confronted with death, anger is a pretty quick reaction you go to. Anger is pretty early on in the steps, so it just made sense for, like, anger to be one of the first things we see her do, and I was fine with that, but it just, all of it felt stilted, all of it felt unnatural, which is why I really struggled with it. This bug is driving me insane.
It's reminding me of the movie, All the Flies.
Which I also thought was an interesting concept in theory, but the actuality of it is like, so death is preoccupied, and we'll get to why in a minute, but death is preoccupied so nobody can die. And so one of the first things you notice is there's a bunch of flies everywhere, because flies die so quickly. But all of this is a day. All of this is happening in a day. We wouldn't notice if nobody died for a single hour or day even, I feel like. Maybe we would.
By the end of the day.
But it's like, okay, the extent that things went to was ridiculous.
There wouldn't unnecessary.
be birds flying around without heads, and cows, and everybody's like screaming, just kill me, I'm a construction worker that lost his legs. It was so weird, because I'm like, this wouldn't all happen in a single day, right? Like, I don't know, it was a crazy concept to me to go that extreme that fast, which is why if I was going to do it, I think what would have been a really cool concept for me, and what I kind of thought they were going for, is like, death can't take you until you agree to be taken, was kind of what I was thinking. It's like everybody has to come to terms with it, everybody has to agree to it, and that's when they're taken. And so I kind of thought of like them holding out in a room for like a week or more. And that could have been the conversation as we just keep cutting back and forth to them throughout the days as they keep going, and that's when death piles up. And that would have worked so much better, would have made so much more sense logically, and we could have just stayed in the room. And granted, as I alluded to in the spoiler-free section, there's ways you can leave the room and make it work. I think there could have been a way that the mom is like, nope, I'm not letting this happen. She like kidnaps her kid and they run away, and death has to follow them and chase them or whatever. But the whole BFG thing, turning into the giant, her eating the bird, that was the one part I laughed at when I wasn't supposed to laugh, because it was just so dumb and I hated it so much.
Yeah, I didn't like
That's when the movie lost me, was when, because like she's trying to kill the bird, and so she burns it, is hitting it with the book,
And wasn't she
all of these things.
digging a hole to bury it? And then
She thought it was dead, yeah.
But it looked like she was digging a hole to bury it, and
Yeah.
then she just ate it, and I was just, it just felt way out of left field.
Yeah.
And it's weird that it made me feel that way, because the movie already was pushing the boundaries of
weird.
reality,
Yeah.
but it was doing it in a consistent way until that moment.
Yeah.
That one
And
felt silly.
in a self-serious way, like for the most part. Like I said, there was a couple of weird things. The bird laughing, I didn't like. The humor in general, I wasn't a fan of. Like Julia, what's her name?
Dreyfus. Julian.
What's her first name? It's something Julia Dreyfus or Julius. No, Julia Louis-Dreyfus.
That's what it is.
That's what it is. And her character reminded me of like a female Steve Carell from The Office, where it's just like she's so awkward and trying to be funny and nobody finds her funny. And so that's her character for the first few scenes, it kind of felt like. And it was just like the humor is not working, even when it's like intentionally bad. I'm not laughing at how cringy it is. And so the humor was really bugging me for the first bit, but I'm like, but it's so artistic and so interesting and so cool. And then it lost all the coolness.
Did you like some of the humor when they were just hanging out in her room getting stoned and playing the music?
I liked some of it. I thought it was endearing.
Yeah, I thought it was pulling you back in for a little bit, and they could have saved it, and then it went back again.
The humor with the bird, with death.
Yes,
it was enjoyable. Like the bit about sarcasm.
Yes.
When he was like, "Was that sarcasm?" And she's like, "Yeah." And you're like, I love sarcasm. And she goes, "Was that sarcasm?" Yes. I enjoyed that bit. That was really good. Pretty much everything with him, I loved. And then they got rid of him for the whole middle hour of the movie. Yeah. And it was just infuriating, because it's like he was the whole thing that like was the driving force behind this movie being interesting, because you already failed making the kid and the mom interesting. So we were just kind of like, all right, well, at least death is cool. And then he wasn't there anymore because she hate him.
Yeah, that was... I just don't even know what they were trying to say. Because we've already talked about denial. They already showed that she's in denial. And I feel like they were just like doing denial again, but in a way that just took me so far to the film. I got nothing out of that.
Maybe they just heard the phrase "death becomes her" and completely misunderstood it. I don't know, because like it was like Bruce Almighty, except for instead of becoming God, you're becoming death.
Yeah.
You're healing all the voices in your head. You have to go answer the call everywhere you go, killing people,
and then like enjoying it and saying we could be good at this. I was like, what?
What are we trying to say?
Like, you don't forget that your daughter's dying because you went and killed a bunch of people. Like, it just felt like they took the emotional part out of it again.
Yeah.
And she just like, it's like, oh, back to reality. Oh yeah, like my daughter's dying.
And that's where, like I said, I feel like there's an allegory in here that I'm just not getting. And so if I'm not getting it and it's secretly brilliant, cool, but I'm not getting it. I didn't get it. It missed me. It just, I don't know. And sometimes I use this as a compliment, but I'm not in this case. At no point did I ever know where this movie was going. Anytime something happened, I went, oh, okay, so now what? And so it's like, because the movie starts out and you kind of get a basic idea, you know where it's going because you saw the trailer, you saw the snippet, but I thought that was literally how the movie was going to start. And so it didn't. And so you're like, wait, The mom and the daughter aren't talking. The mom is inexplicably ignoring her and the nurse's phone calls, which just infuriated
Yeah, that
me.
made no sense to me.
I
Ignored her
hated
daughter's call, too.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
She saw it.
First, and she deliberately ignored it, which made me, from the jump, because that's like the first thing you see about the mom, it made me hate the mom from the jump. Going, how can you ignore your daughter in her time of need when you know she's on her deathbed, literal deathbed? Made me hate her from the jump. So you're like, where's this going? Then the movie, it becomes what we thought it was going to be. And you're like, okay, cool. Now we're just going to spend the whole movie talking, right? And then, nope, we go into the anger, which I had to come to terms with, eventually accept. I was like, okay, I guess that makes sense. And then from the anger, it escalated to her trying to kill it and then eventually eating it. And I'm like, at this point, I'm like, I'm tapping out on trying to predict what is going to happen. Yeah. And it just kept happening. For the rest of the movie, I had no idea what was going to happen. Because after she ate it, I was like, oh, so she's going to vomit it up. And she eventually does, but it took so much time. Her becoming death, which I was like, what? Like, her, you know, they're having this whole, like, at a certain point, I give up on the fact that she's going to throw it up and think, okay, well, we're just focusing on their relationship and talking because they're fighting over the screwdriver. And like, this isn't my favorite conversation, but at least we're talking, you know, figuring stuff out. And then in the middle of that fight is when she grows twice the size. And I'm like, oh my God. Yeah. Like I said, I've used it as a compliment before because, oh, I can't possibly predict where this is going. I wanted to be able to predict because every decision felt like the wrong one in this.
That sums up the whole movie.
Yeah.
Everything it should have done, it did the opposite. I did like one part a lot about her having death in her.
Okay.
And that was in the end when she got big. I thought I thought death was letting her take the daughter. Like, I thought she was going to walk over and give her a hug and do that. And there was a bunch of times where I kept thinking the movie was going to end, and then it just didn't, and it didn't, and it didn't. But when she got big and carried her home, that was a moment that hit me as a positive. I was like, my thought was, this is beautiful. She gets one last chance to hold her daughter, her baby, you know, and be her caregiver. But like, I was trying to get what they were saying, and as a parent,
I feel like that was
where my mind went right away of like getting to hold your little girl one last time, because that's what it was. Yeah. But it didn't really it didn't matter. It didn't need to be that.
Yeah.
There was just no reason.
Yeah, I think so. The beginning was a little awkward, but once it got going, it was really good for that section. When they were in the bedroom, and it was good up until she ate the bird. So that section, however long that was, let's say 20 minutes, was really good. And then the ending again was like my favorite part, as the girl dies and then the mom dealing with the death afterward. So, and that was probably another 10-15 minutes. So you put that together, you got like tops 40 minutes of a good movie right there. And then so you've got another hour, 10 minutes of just But so what did you think of the ending? Because I know obviously it goes against your beliefs. How did you feel about it?
It felt I've had this complaint with a lot of movies. And it's when I get the feeling that somebody, instead of having an idea and wanting to put it through, they had an agenda of like one moment they wanted to say, and they made the movie fit to do that. So like when they were talking about God and afterlife, I am totally fine with something being aside from my beliefs, and I'll go hook, line, and sinker and enjoy it. It just felt hopeless and just pathetic. It felt like a really stupid, I don't know, it wasn't like that's a really beautiful thought, or that's a cool thought. I just didn't get that from it. It felt really rushed. And like, if somebody like even tried to seriously explain that to me, I think I would be like, I don't know about that. Like, I wouldn't even give it a second.
It was my favorite part of the movie. It was my favorite part of the movie. That was when I was like, thank God we finally got back to something good.
You're talking about the memory part? Like when
So if you haven't seen it, basically, after the death of the girl, the mom is just hanging out wanting to die. And then Death shows up and she's like, oh, are you here to kill me? And he's like, nope. And she's like, well, please do. What am I doing here? If there's an afterlife, I want to be in it. And if there's no afterlife, why am I even here then? I just want it to be done. And
I liked that.
And then he goes, well, there is no God, at least the way that humans understand it. But what I will say is there is an afterlife, and it's how you represent, how you carry on the legacy of the person with your memory of that person. You told her that she didn't have to worry about you, and you're going to continue on living in a way that she would be proud of you, essentially. Mm-hmm. So that is her memory, that is her legacy, that is her afterlife. And, you know, obviously if you believe in religion, that can kind of be an insulting way to put it, but I thought it was a really beautiful sentiment. I did really enjoy that concept, and I didn't think it was ham-fisted, really. I thought maybe the setup to get there was a little bit rushed, and I mean, that's how I felt about the whole movie, though. I didn't feel like they knew how to set up anything.
And I didn't feel insulted. Like, the only part was when, like, I don't know, him mentioning that there was no God didn't feel, like, natural the way he said it. It felt like somebody just wanted that in the movie.
Yeah,
the second
it didn't
portion
feel set up. All right, it didn't feel like a good setup.
But the second portion, yeah, the memory, if he didn't say that was the afterlife, I don't know. It just didn't hit. It didn't hit right for me. I don't know how else to put it. It just didn't open up any emotions of me being like, because even the idea of what he said, it's like, yeah, that's true. I mean, I think about my dad all the time, and that's how he lives on.
Yeah.
You know, but I don't like that he made that the afterlife. No, that's like our afterlife. The one, like, after we lose the person, that's our life after their death. That's not their afterlife. Like, that was kind of the disconnect for me.
Yeah, I feel like they could have made it less absolute. Like, he could have said that without saying that is the only truth. Because, like, she even says, like, I know you're not allowed to tell me what the truth is. And then he's like, okay, well, here it is. And it's like, you could have just said, here's this, I'll let you figure out the rest later. I think that could have been more poetic, or a better way to say it, I think.
I was also not enjoying the movie up until that point,
right?
Too, so it wasn't like they lost me
at that point, and so I think that part, like I said, could have been a part of your well-balanced movie, he had the whole adventure of being a giant for no discernible reason. Because I know that the bird, he grows and shrinks to get in and out of places, but once she swallows him, she takes on his powers, but doesn't know how to control them. And when she gets angry, she hulks out. I'm like, I don't understand what we're doing with this. I really don't.
It was too much to throw at me after, an hour already.
Yeah.
To just add this whole new complex portion of the film that made no sense to me.
Yeah.
And didn't add anything.
It didn't. It was, like, all of this journey was to discuss grief and being willing to let go, which, like we were saying, could have been just a literal conversation about grief and learning to let go. And we saw, like, one or two tiny snippets of, like, flashbacks of her when she was younger and healthy, and it's like, we could have had more of that. We could have discussed more. What the hell happened to the dad? Is he dead? Is he gone?
That bugged me too.
I would like to know, and also we could get into the fact that, like, the kid's British and the mom's not. Why?
Wait, did I miss that? Wait,
she's got, like, a whole British accent going, and her mom is just American. Why? And I think I don't know if they were in the UK, but it didn't look like America. I don't know where they were.
Yeah, dude, I don't know.
The kid sounded like Harry Potter. So,
I didn't catch that. Now that you're saying that, I'm, like, hearing her voice again, and I can't believe I didn't catch on to that.
And then it's just, Seinfeld. It's, what are we doing? I don't know. What are we doing? It was just weird. The whole movie was very weird, and just not
in a good way.
Yeah, not in a good way, because I'm totally cool with, like, weird, unique concepts. I mean, that scene alone was so weird and unique. That's what drew us to go see this movie at, an art house theater in Philly instead of a convenient place to go and pay for parking. But, like, it just didn't feel, it wasn't cool anymore. Like, it lost me. And part of that was just awful writing, and we alluded to it not making any sense, so here it is. There's a point in this movie, the daughter says, take me upstairs. She takes her upstairs and goes, why did you bring me up here? Just to feel sorry for you?
Dude, I was so confused. I was so confused at that. That's one of the moments where I was like, they cut a scene here. There's something missing. There was some dialogue that got cut where they changed. I don't know, dude.
Anything to do with the mom and the daughter's relationship, other than the couple of cute moments I talked about before, was so forced, so unreal, so disingenuous. They were fighting constantly in ways that made no sense at all. Absolutely at all. And then you throw in right in the middle of their fight, her mom doubles in size. And I'm just like, and I'm gone. I can't. What is going on? None of this made any sense. And like, I'm a big fan of allegory. I mentioned that a bunch of times on this channel. Like, my favorite genre is allegorical horror, but allegorical dramas are cool too. So if this was an allegory, cool, but what was it? It doesn't make any sense to me. I'm so lost. I'm so confused. I don't know what any of it was trying to say, other than the parts that came right out and told you what they were trying to say.
I think it was just a journey of death. I think that was literally what it is, of experiencing death from the person who's living.
It lost me, and by the time it won me back, it was too little too late. Because like I said, I enjoyed the ending a lot, and I enjoyed that 20 minutes at the beginning, but so much just needless fluff. I don't know.
I don't know if I've ever seen a movie that I felt that strongly was way too long.
Yeah.
I can't think of anyone like that. Like, that was to that degree. Why is this still happening?
It legitimately was like the Cat in the Hat, you know, where it's like the whole thing is supposed to take place in one afternoon in a house. But hey, let's break out, go chase a dog down the street, go to a birthday party, go into a rave, come back out, explode the universe, put it back together, go down at a roller coaster. Like, that's what we did. Just not in Dr. Seuss. Yeah. Just in, I don't know, cool art house movie mode. And I don't know. I didn't buy any of it. I didn't care about any of it.
Sometimes short and sweet.
Sometimes
and getting that little message out is all you need.
Yeah.
They should have stuck with it.
We didn't need to see what the Grinch looked like when he was in school. We didn't need to know.
I love that scene.
I hate it. I'd give it a 6 though, because honestly, like I said, I can't give it like a negative rating. Maybe I should give it a 5, but I can't give it like a negative rating because the concept was so cool to me. And just because they butchered the concept doesn't mean like there weren't parts of it that I enjoyed. And like, I'm still at the end of the day glad I saw it. I just wish it was better than it was. So I'm gonna stick with like a 6-ish. A very light 6. What are you giving it?
This is gonna sound really harsh, but I would say like a 2 or a 3.
Jeez. All right.
Because the concept
deserves better.
It deserves so much better, and they had what you have. Like, there's that spark that makes a great movie. They had the spark, and they just threw it in a bucket of water, and it just, I don't know. I took it personal.
That's fair. I've said that before too, and I'm not applying it to this, but like it annoys me more when there's a movie that should be good that isn't, than when a movie's just straight bad.
And if they just edited it down, like, it's not like the end result. Like, I don't know who put money into this film and then saw it and said, yeah, this is what we're putting out. Yeah. Like, I'd be like trying anything I could to save the film, because I feel like anybody that watched, they had to get that kind of response back. I know we're not the only ones that felt that way. And that's when you go in and you change things, or you shorten it, or whatever. I don't know. It just felt like in
the movie's defense, I think you'd like it a lot more if you saw it a second time, because then you can eliminate your expectations that you had going into it.
I don't think I have the energy to ever watch that movie again.
That's fair. But I think, hypothetically, if you did, you would like it more. Because I feel similarly, where I'm like, what I had in my head was so much better. But I think objectively, just taking it for what it is and what it wasn't terrible. It just wasn't as good as it should have been in any way.
I think it was bad.
Yeah, well, that's fair.
I'll stick with 3, because 2, I feel like there's movies I absolutely hate. I didn't hate it. I just didn't like it.
Yeah, no, 2 is reserved for the lowest of the low, because to me, 1, I only rate movies 1 if they're so bad I enjoy them. That's the ones. So 2 is literally the lowest I'll go on a bad movie.
I'll go 3. Yeah, I just didn't like it. I never watched it again, and I would never recommend it. And if I didn't see it, I'd be okay.
I'm so glad this is also the first time I think somebody I've watched a movie with has been harsher on it than I have been. Because I'm always so nervous that I'm too harsh. Because like it's so much easier to say negative things than positive things. Because when something's bad, you're like, oh, I hated this, I hated that. When it's good, you're like, yeah, it was good. So I'm glad that I'm not the harshest one today. So that's what we had to think. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe if you're new here. And like I said before, also subscribe to
Deep Fried Thoughts podcast.
Where's it at?
It's on, well, anywhere you listen to podcasts and YouTube.
Yeah, Spotify, Apple, everything. So check it out. I think there's some good episodes on there that you'll enjoy. So thanks for watching, guys. Bye.
See ya.